assessment. Maybe just start off with a quick informal poll. How many people are using some form of automated assessment in their classes? Yeah. If someone want to shout out, like, what kind of automated assessment are you using? Clickers. Clickers? All right. How many people are using something other than clickers within online quizzes? All right. So this was sort of the theme of our group. Is we were looking at various forms of, and it was really a wide range of innovative forms of trying to do some form of assessment and getting feedback back to the students in a faster fashion. Right? So we had ranges from someone submitting, students being able to turn in, to test their computer programs and evaluate whether or not they worked, or get some feedback on whether or not they worked, and some kind of appropriate feedback to say, hey, it didn't work, and this is the type of case you might need to think about when you go back and rethink and retest your program. Others were, we had to not a technological solution, to someone just looking and saying, based on the first quiz, we need to have an intervention and talk with you and make sure and see if there's something else going on in your life and being able to intervene in that way. So this was our group. I think I still like the original title we had before we added the novel original Transformative, which was the fail, but so the part of our problem, I think, was we were similar enough but different enough that we were sitting there arguing a lot about what were our objectives and what did we really want in our system. But we spent a lot of time and we're working on that. And this was one of the things that we wanted. We do have a formal question here for you to ask. So we've got the polling open here. Suppose you had a system that could really do some really nice automated out of class, so not the clickers, but something looking at students doing work and being able to do some kind of automated assessment and then being able to provide some form of feedback. Which of these uses would you find most compelling in using such a tool for? So providing student feedback, grading student work, providing feedback to yourself so that you can modify your instruction, supporting further research in engineering education. All right, so. So we got 50.
Oh, if you're going to stop, just hit page down.
Page down. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Bonus time. All right. Okay, so what do we have here? Provide feedback to students, grading student work, providing feedback to instructors, and supporting research and education. All right, so I mean, you know, we knew this was kind of a loaded question. Hopefully, you're not just interested in one aspect of this, but part of our struggles were we were all looking at different objectives, and in our purposes in designing this system, and so we did try and come up with some commonalities here along those three of those dimensions. We didn't list grading here, but that obviously would be a great. That was also an important factor for several of us, which is we really wanted to be efficient and save time. But providing feedback to the students, and a lot of it is providing feedback to the instructors, trying to figure out who's struggling, what types of struggles they're having, and being able to give them useful feedback to improve their performance. All right. All right, so one of the things, and we spent a long time talking about this slide, is I think we almost got sidetracked into, boy, we should put this together and write a proposal to try and create some kind of system that would solve all of our diverse goals together. And so But what are we looking for? And it's a wide range of things that we want. I'll just touch on a couple of these. We want it to be individualized, and there's a lot of different meanings to that. But from a very practical perspective, we want it so that different students have different questions, so that you can't just copy what someone else did and put that answer in. But we also meant that to be a lot more sophisticated, where based on how the student performed, the system would adapt and help direct them either to better learning resources or to better questions to further try and help them with their learning and assessment as we were going on. Some of the other things is this issue of being open source, open data, extendable, right? And this is one of the things we talked a lot about. There's so many systems out there right now, but yet almost all of us who actually were using a system sort of built our own in some form or another. And so I think that's one of the real challenges in moving this type of innovation forward, is to have a system that's easy enough for everyone to want to use, but that is flexible enough to allow lots of people to use it and solve that scaling up problem. So, I don't know, anybody else want to say anything on this slide? Here. All right, so lots of challenges we had for implementation. And so one of these, and we really spent a lot of time talking about this, is just the software. There is available software, but for a variety of reasons, a lot of us aren't using the things ranging from this would be expensive for the students to have to use, or I'd really have to learn a whole new system and a language in order to get everything into the system. I think a couple of us are really struggling with for those of us who are trying to provide feedback to students, and often provide feedback to students before they actually turn in their assignment for a grade, is how do you balance how much feedback you provide versus, and helping them learn, right? If you don't do anything, they turn in the wrong solution and they don't learn anything. So we want to provide some feedback so they will try and go back and struggle with it some more, but then for it to become a crutch where they're depending on it and they're not really thinking about it, they're just using it and counting on the feedback to help them out. Yeah, so a whole bunch of other challenges to this, again, leading to all of us developing many of our own systems. But we did have quite a few successes, and a lot of these, I think, are the types of things you would expect. I think several people did document higher student learning outcomes. There was on one where we were timing when students would get started on it. They were able to observe that it would lead to students being a little more proactive and getting started on the assignments earlier so that they would have the chance to get the feedback. Several people were able to use the assessments and get some, to modify what they were doing and modify their lectures to do some just-in-time lecturing. So what did we do to impact documentation? I think we were, a lot of this is similar to what people talked about before. Some people had some qualitative student feedback, talked about having focus groups and student evaluations. Others had, surveys, Likert surveys, and some of the systems were able to measure and see, hey, people were actually completing this earlier. And that they could see a correlation where as long as students who submitted their program assignments, Diana, I think it was, the crucial cutoff was 24.
I don't have the exact.
All right, but something like 24 hours before the due date, there was a significantly higher grade than those who waited to submit until the final day of the assignment. And then the one we have down here is what we'd really like to do is, some kind of long-term study to say, hey, 1, 3, 5 years afterwards, that we can really measure and see that this has helped students beyond what we can do, let's say, within the context of the course. Last aspect, scaling up the innovation. lot of things that everyone here has talked about. Trying to get some kind of adoption, either with, start small within our department, then within the college, maybe the university. Having some kind of informal meetings at discipline specific. If you've developed something for your course, maybe this can be shared at a research meeting in some kind of breakout session. A lot of this, again, is trying to make this tools, make these assessment tools and feedbacks modular, easily customizable, so that it will be adoptable by others, and really trying to allow for once people have once people have created materials and let's say really good problem sets and things that could be used, that these also need to be able to be shared. And again, we know there are systems out there, and some of these do come with some data, but again, it's I guess one of the things we talked about was also just having a better categorization of all of these systems that would make it easier for people to know what was out there, be able to compare and contrast what they had. So I guess that's it for us, unless anyone else wants to jump in.
Good job.
So one of the questions I had about this is, it sounds like a great idea, the modular kind of adoptable approach, but what about IRB differences between institutions? How do you account for the more difficult institutions and the different requirements and any tool that would be open to a wide range of groups?
For IRB approval?
Yes.
So you wouldn't have to get IRB approval just to use the tool. It would just be if you were collecting data, right? And publishing data.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's only if it's used for research. Right.
I guess maybe I don't understand the open data part. It sounds like you're sharing data.
Oh, so for the data, I guess we weren't talking about sharing student data, but it would be sharing like problem sets, assignments, and that type of thing. It wouldn't be student data, no.
I developed 50 circuits problems and then upload them so somebody else teaching circuits can use them.
You raised this question about assessing outcomes 1, 2, 3 years after the course. And I think that's something we would all be very interested in. I was curious about whether any of you or others in the room had any experiences at all about evaluating outcomes, sometime after a course. Or is this just some sort of the big white elephant in the room that none of us talks about, other than putting it up at the...
Diffuse elephant in the room. That's why
Go ahead.
I think it's really the bottom line. Are we having the impact in careers, successful careers, getting off on the right foot? I know of two means to do this. There's an ABET post-graduation interview that we're all supposed to have something to do with. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. The other thing is that our department tracks alumni for monetary reasons, and that's a way to keep in touch over many years. That might be an expansion of what you ask about in those contacts could actually be pretty valuable, I think. So that's two.
This is a comment and a bit of a concern that I have with this idea of long-term evaluation. Not only is that data incredibly difficult to get with any amount of reliability, but I don't know how honestly we, the voice from nowhere? Sorry. It's a higher power speaking. So this is a very serious issue, I think. I find it very hard to intellectually defend the idea that the 100-plus students that I've run through an REU program in the last 5 years, the idea that you could go to any of them 6 years down the road and say, you've been successful, you're at the Princeton, in your Princeton's chemical engineering PhD program. How much of that is attributable to what you experienced in Raj's program? I will tell you, there's a lot of variation in the trajectories of human lives after we get them done. And when you combine the difficulty of getting that data with the fundamental uncertainty associated with it, I think we should rethink whether we're forcing ourselves to do that. I think it makes a lot of sense at graduation and maybe shortly thereafter to try to understand what's working and not in a curriculum. But beyond that, I really wonder about the utility of that data. Sorry.
One last question, we'll take a break. I'll just shut up. I just have a question too about privacy issues. I mean, if you're collecting data about students and you're holding on to it for years, what privacy issues are there? Is this data going to be dissociated from individuals? Are you going to be able to identify individuals? Like you can say, oh, you did really bad in mechanics 10 years ago. You know, are there privacy issues?
Now that, I mean,
The same as grade.
I think it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I mean, that, you know, so that is why we have to do an IRB if we're going to publish something on this type of thing. But in terms of using it for assessment of your own course and to be able to go back and say whether or not you wanted to improve it, you know, it's just a matter, it is true. I mean, I do feel like Big Brother. I have my students complete an assignment on an online tool, and I've got this, I've got every edit they made on it. There's a chat tool within it, and they can see it, but everything they communicate with their partner while they're working on this is available there.
And some of the tools I used, if I didn't need to know what a specific student was doing, I was more concerned about like numbers, statistics of the class, I could set it to be anonymous. And so if it doesn't have to be linked to a student grade, at least I know Angel, which is similar to Blackboard, allows you to set it up anonymously. So you don't see that information if you don't want to worry about it. For the project I did with an IRB approval, I coded all the students. And it's because I had to ultimately link their grades and performance to questions that I asked them in surveys. But I still kept them, if I look at the data now, it's just all codes.